Okay. Oh, fuck. It looked so nice. Why would I fuck things up? Okay. There you go. Okay. Back to cute white girl facade. Hello. Okay, so, first off, don't let me fool you. My room is an absolute fucking mess. It's not as bad as it usually is, but it's definitely not where most people would consider clean. So I just did what every white girl does, and I was like, you know, if I just put up some fairy lights and I create a path from the door to my bed, everything will be fine and it'll be okay and nobody needs to know anything. So, anyway, today I'm going to be telling you about the story of my quinceanera, and I'm a little worried because this is a new camera that I'm filming this on, and I'm a little worried that this is blurry and out of focus or that you can't hear me. I'll find out later. It'll be fine. Also, I'd like to say thank you to Brandon, a person named Brandon, because that is who bought this camera, and thank you to them very much. Also, at the time that I'm filming this, it is their birthday, so happy birthday to them. Anyway, my quinceanera, let's see, I'm 17 now. My quinceanera was like 2 years ago then. I can't do math. Yes, it was 2 years ago, and it was a very interesting event. It almost didn't happen. So, that is my pretty princess. Okay. Hi. Hello. I am here, and I am queer. So as you can tell, I changed locations. Before, I was in my bedroom at my mom's house, and now I'm in my bedroom at my dad's house. You see, when you have divorced parents and they have joint custody, you tend to move around a lot, and so that's what's happening. This is Kitty, my lovable cat, and I've already spent a lot of time talking, so I'm just gonna get right into it. Basically, this all started because I myself kind of wanted to make, I don't know, my mom's childhood dream come true. I don't even know if that was really her childhood dream. So my mom is the first person, like, in my bloodline to live in America, on that side anyway. She's first generation Mexican and Cuban American. And she grew up very poor, though. Very, very poor. And she had lots of siblings. And I know that one of the sisters that she grew up with got a quince, but I know that she didn't, and mostly just because it was expensive and they couldn't afford to do that. And so I figured, you know, why not give her a chance to live through me? She most definitely did, and that's awesome. So that was kind of my first initial idea of it. I had always wanted a quinceañera just because, you know, cousins of mine had had quinceañeras, people in my family, and it felt very natural and normal for me as a Mexican American to have a quince. That just felt like something that was normal. Like, growing up, I just always thought and assumed that I was gonna have one. That was just a part of daily life. However, it became less likely because my parents tend to fight a lot about everything. And whenever I wanted to have a quince, they both were like, no way. It was one of the few things that they could agree on. And I think the reason was because they kept telling me how expensive it was. And they were right. Having a quince is no small penny wasted. It's super expensive. It's like having a full-ass wedding. It's expensive as hell, and nobody can afford it. And that's why most people with their quinces, they have different people in their family pay for different things. Kind of like how some people would do with weddings, you know? And so that's kind of how that went. Basically, I had begged and pleaded for so long whenever my 15th birthday was about to roll around for a quinceanera. I begged, I pleaded. However, I was a little late on the train. Normally, whenever you're planning a quince, some people plan years in advance, but you at least want to plan like a year in advance, at least a while to give you time to get all of that together. And so I was kind of late on that. I was kind of putting it all together last minute, spur of the moment. And not super last minute, like I had a few months, but I probably should have started planning a year in advance. I only planned probably maybe 8 or 7 months in advance, so I wasn't all that behind, but I was still a little behind. And I begged and pleaded for my parents to let me have a quince, and then they finally agreed. It took them a long time to come around, but they finally agreed. I remember they tried to bribe me out of it, though, for the longest time. Like, I had a cousin that was going to Disneyland for her birthday, and my Thea was just like, well, what if you want in on the Disneyland trip? What if instead of a quince you go to Disneyland? And I was like, nope, nah, I want a quinceañera. And I made it happen. I'm not usually like that with everything, but this was very important to me. I really wanted a quince. And that's how that happened. Basically, I had gotten together everything. What wound up happening was once my parents decided, okay, yes, we'll do it, then the planning came. And so I had a Thea who had a friend who was a DJ, and he had DJ'd events before, parties, things like that, but never a quince. And so he was kind of in uncharted territory, but I wasn't too worried, you know? I was like, he can do this, it'll be fine. So we had a DJ covered. And then that same Thea kind of was a photographer on the side as a hobby. And so I was like, okay, she can take my photos. I can do the photo shoot with her. And then I had another Thea say, oh, well, I have a friend who is a hairstylist and she can do your hair for the event. And I was like, hell yeah, all sounds good. And I had a cousin say that she could do my makeup and she was a beauty queen. So I was like, okay, works out just fine. Everything was kind of falling together, except for the chambelán. So anyone who's had a quince knows all about the chambelán. The chambelán is kind of like seen as the main quince's kind of date or escort, the person that she's going to dance with who's around her age, that sort of thing. I did not have a chambelán, and the reason why is because originally I had a friend of mine who was this half white, half Mexican guy. I'm a half white, half Mexican girl. It was all coming together, made perfect sense. He had been chambelán for other people's quinces before. I was like, he knows what he's doing, great. He was going to be my chambelán, and he had agreed to it long before, and then we kind of had a falling out and we stopped being friends. We kind of had like a thing for each other. It didn't work out. And so that didn't happen. And I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine, because I have another friend who's also a half white, half Mexican teenage boy. Perfectly fine. And so I had gotten another friend of mine to agree to be my chambelán. And it wasn't without some convincing, though. He was not so thrilled at the idea, but he was willing to do it for me because he was one of my best friends. We were really good friends, and he was willing to do this for me. As the date got closer and closer to the actual event, we had had a falling out. This video is gonna make me look like a bad person. Oh my god. We had had a falling out, and we stopped talking. And he kind of just dropped out of it altogether, and I was like, well shit, I don't have a chambelán now. And eventually I was just like, you know what, as much as I want to keep it as traditional as I possibly can, because already my quince was shaping up to be more of a modernized version of a quince, I was like, if I can't find a chambelán, that is okay. I don't need a chambelán. I don't need some guy to walk me down the aisle and to dance with me. I don't need that. That's perfectly fine. So I was just like, fuck it. All the single ladies, Beyonce said so. Beyonce said so. I don't need a chambelán. So I was like, screw it. It's not necessary. So at that point, there was no more chambelán. And then, as the day got closer and closer, we started planning more and more, right? Me and my mom, we took like the 5-minute drive and crossed the border, and we went and got some dresses and looked at them, and we found my quince dress. We went and tried on some dresses for the day. It was really fun. She has a lot of photos, great memories. We had picked out my dress, and we had kind of both decided that of the dresses that we had looked at, that this really pretty red dress was going to be the one. While I liked the dress, it was also kind of strange because white is traditional at quinces. But if you notice, more and more, quinces within, whether they be in the States or in Mexico, have kind of moved more towards having modernized colors. So, you know, quince dresses nowadays are all the colors of the fucking rainbow. Like, you have girls who had red dresses, blue dresses, pink dresses. Pink is very popular. Just dresses of every color. White is traditional, but more and more people are moving away from it. And so, while I was a little concerned about that, I also was just like, you know, this is normal. A lot of people aren't doing white anymore, so I didn't feel too worried about it. It was perfectly fine. And so that's how that was going. We had found this really beautiful red dress and everything was working out. And then a few days before, some family drama happened, as family drama always does. Basically, me and my dad had gotten into an argument. I'm not even gonna be like, oh, it wasn't my fault. Maybe it was, okay? I don't even remember what the argument was about because it was so long ago now. I don't even know. I honestly don't even remember what we were arguing about, but I'm not going to say that I was in the wrong or that I was in the right. I don't even remember what happened. But just because this story is told from my perspective doesn't mean that you should like look at me with rose-colored glasses. It's most definitely possible that it was my fault. That's most definitely possible. I'm not saying for certain just because not only do I not remember what happened, but I feel like me being like, it was totally his fault is kind of a biased way to take things. So make of that what you will. Maybe I was being a bratty 14-year-old. I don't know. Maybe I was. But we had gotten in a fight. And he had decided that he was done with the whole thing. And at this point, we're like 3 days before. So people from out of town, people from all over the country were planning to fly in. They had already booked their hotel reservations. They had already bought their plane tickets. The event was already happening. Like, it was set in motion. It was a little too late to back out of it now. Not only did we already pay a lot of people, we had already gotten all of these things together. Like, my mom had paid one of her co-workers to make my cake at a cheaper price. Like I said, like, we're cutting corners here with expenses, like most quinces. I'm just saying that everything was already set in motion. You know, I had tias that were flying in. I had people from Mexico who were, well, when you live right on the border, I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but people from deeper in Mexico were coming to this event. So people from a quick little backstory on my dad is that he's a white guy, right? I'm half Mexican American, and well, technically I'm a quarter Mexican, a quarter Cuban. I'm Latinx. I'm half Latina, and he is a white guy from Ohio. You know, like, this event means kind of nothing to him because for him it's not a part of his culture. For me, for my mom, for all my mom's side of the family, it's a big deal and it's sentimental and important. To him it means less than nothing. Like, he doesn't really care all that much. He's excited because it's like a big party, but he already just wasn't happy. He wasn't excited to pay for the venue. He, from the start, was just dragging his feet. And so it kind of felt like he was just waiting for an argument or something to happen so that he would have an excuse to pull the plug. And again, no hate towards my dad. I'm not necessarily gonna be overly angry about this. This happened years ago. Moving on, right? And so that's what had happened. He had pulled the plug on the whole event, and let's just say that months prior, okay, the event was happening in January 12th. January 12th. My birthday is December 1st. But we decided not to have it in December, not only because we were a little behind on planning, but because December's a really busy month for most people. You know, you got Christmas, New Year's, all these things. And so I feel like it would have been not as many people able to show up, especially people who were traveling out of town. And for me personally, I had a lot of things going on at the time with school, and I was in a play. I was in a play at the time, and that play was happening like every night, like all the time. There was no way that I could have done that, like have it on my actual birthday, especially since my actual birthday that day, I was in a show. I had a play that night. I was performing. I couldn't do that. And so we decided to just push it back until January. So January 12th, like I said, things are rolling around. He pulls the plug. I immediately freak out. I immediately am like, whoa, the event is like literally 3 days away, like 2 or 3 days away, like right in there. It was really, really cutting it close. Things were already set in motion. It was too late to back out now. But I'm freaking out because I'm like, holy shit, he just canceled the venue. What's happening now? And so my mom is just like, you know what? I didn't want to have to pay for everything, and I didn't want to have to pay for the hall, especially since he knew someone who kind of worked with that venue, with that company, I guess you could say, and he was able to get it at a cheaper price. And so my mom was just like, I didn't want to have to pay for this, but I guess I'm going to have to. So we were on the phone talking to him in the car when he had told us that he had canceled like his reservations with the venue. Like he told us that it was over when we were in the car. And so immediately my mom was like, okay, that's not happening. So we stop driving wherever we're driving, and then she immediately is like, we're gonna drive right to the hall right now, and we're gonna talk to the event planner that we had talked to just 2 weeks before. We go up there and we talk to her, and we're like, hey, we explain how we don't want it to be canceled, and then my mom just says, never mind him, he won't pay for it, I'll pay for it in full, just please keep our spot. We don't want to lose our reservation for the hall at this time on this day. And so she was like, oh, okay, like we get it, because I feel so bad for this event coordinator, because she was like, what? He just told me that the whole thing was off, and then like 20 minutes later you're telling me it's back on. And so that's what happened. My mom to the rescue. She saved the day for sure that time, most definitely. And that's how that was going down. And then at that point I was like, okay, wow, that's crazy. My dad to this day still maintains that I told him that he was not allowed to go to the event, or he makes it seem as though he felt unincluded or uninvited. And I'm sorry he felt that way. I didn't intend to make it come across that way, but him and my brother, one of my brothers, were kind of angry about the whole thing. Like my brother kind of sided with him in the argument, and they both decided that they were not coming to my quince. Like they both told me, they're like, you're not having us. We are not coming to my quince. I had another brother though who was coming out of town because he lived in Phoenix, like just a few hours away. So him, his girlfriend, and his newly born baby were gonna drive up, but it was still kind of sad because my dad and my other brother wanted nothing to do with it. They were not coming. They were not going to be a part of this event for no one. And that was sad, especially if you know that there's the father-daughter dance. I obviously did not get to have a father-daughter dance because my dad didn't show up. And so what I had decided to do instead was I was like, fuck it. Fuck him. He doesn't want to be a part of this, that's fine. Like, yes, I'd rather him be here, but if he doesn't want to be a part of that, there's literally nothing I can do to change that. And so my mentality about it was just adapt and overcome, you know, and this event wasn't really for him anyway. You know, when I really thought about it, at its core, the event was really more for my grandmother. You know, my grandmother was the one who was actually from Mexico, and it just, it felt more so like it was for her and for my mom. And so I decided that instead of a father-daughter dance, I was going to have a dance with my grandmother and a dance with my mom. And you know what? I wouldn't have had it any other way. I didn't have a father-daughter dance. I had a dance with my mom and my grandma. And that's fine by me. I love my nana, okay? So it worked out just fine. And I know that it made my grandmother happy and it made my mom happy. And that's all that matters, you know? And I don't really need a father-daughter dance. You know, like, obviously it would have been nice had he been there, but if he didn't want to be a part of it, that's on him. That's not on me. Nothing I can do about it now. It's in the past, but I'm happy with the way things turned out. As far as that goes, I'm very pleased that I decided to dance with my grandmother and my mom. That worked out just fine. So, I'm not mad about it. Definitely not. I'm kind of happy with the way that worked out. So my dad and my brother are not coming. That happens. And then it's the day before, right? So it's the day before my quince, and a few of my cousins have come in from out of town. Most of my family that came in from out of town stayed in one hotel. They all stayed in the same hotel. So needless to say, that weekend we gave that hotel a shit ton of business. They all decided to stay there. And so I, like the night before, I was hanging out with them in their hotel room, just having a fun time. It was really great. It was a lot of fun, and I loved it. I honestly loved it. It was great. I wasn't worried about anything. I was just trying to relax. Then the morning of happens. This is when it all starts kind of going together. The morning of the event, I wake up kind of early because I'm trying to get an early start on things. I want to be there at a certain time. I want to just have everything ready and prepared. And so I wake up early, I take a shower, I get ready, all these things. And then my mom has to help me get into my dress. And so anyone who's like seen a quince dress, it's like a huge, like, fluffy princess dress, right? And they're big. Mine had a corset to it. A lot of them do. So it's not something that I could just get into on my own, and it took some time getting into. There was a process here. There's a giant hoop to it. There was a lot happening. So my mom had to literally help me get into my dress. She was literally helping me into my dress. And so she had helped me into my dress. I had, like, fixed up my hair and everything, and then, what are you doing? You're cute. Mwah. I fixed my hair and everything, and then I was like, okay, that's cool. Once I had done all that, we had gone over to a hair studio because one of my tias had a friend who was a hairstylist, and she paid for me to go to her salon. And I was like, hell yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. And so she did my hair and she, like, fixed it all up. I was not too pleased with the way it looked. I didn't say anything, and I didn't make it obvious that I was not happy with the way it looked. I definitely hated it, but that bitch? Anyway, I was definitely not thrilled with it, not gonna lie. I kind of hated it, but I was smart enough to know that realistically speaking, it wasn't that bad. Like, I hated the way it looked on me, and I felt like I could look better, but I knew that it wasn't really nearly as bad as I was making it out to be. Like, in my head, you know? Like, you get insecure about things, and you make things out to be worse than they actually are. And so it was like, while I could look better, I definitely could look worse. And hey, it's not that bad. So I was like, this is fine. I can live with this. And so I was perfectly fine with it. And I didn't even say anything to anyone. No one knew that I was kind of not happy with the way my hair looked. No one needed to know, you know? It was okay. And so that's the way that went. And then after that was done, I was like kind of content with that. I, got an offer from one of my cousins to do my makeup for me. And I just, at that point, I was like, no, that's okay. You don't have to. No thanks. Like, that's all right. Because I was shit at makeup. I still am shit at makeup. I'm terrible. I can't do it, which is fine. That works out for me because most of the time I don't wear makeup, so it's okay. But I was complete shit with makeup. But I decided at that point, I was like, what happens when I don't like the way it looks and it's... Okay, 50 centuries later after playing with the cat, I'm back. Hi. To make a long story short about makeup, though, I had always felt like my face was just hard to work with in terms of makeup. And so I didn't want anyone to mess with it, and I also just, I don't know, I kind of wanted to just live with it, and I decided that less makeup was better. So I wound up doing my own makeup. It didn't look great, but I didn't put a whole lot on, and I was happy with it, Like, at the time, I was like, this looks fine. I can live with this. I didn't put a whole lot of makeup on my face. I kind of kept it as natural as I could, and that's the way I went with it. So, while I did all of that, I did my makeup, and then my mom was like, okay, we're gonna go and take you to the hotel where your Thea's at and your cousins are, because I have to go to the hall and start putting things together, and she's gonna take you for your photo shoot. She's going to take you to the park, and you guys are gonna get some photos done. And I was like, okay, sounds cool. So we get to the hotel, and my Thea immediately realizes, after my mom has already dropped me off, that basically her husband had taken their car and he had gone to see some friends because they were from that town. Mwah! Playful kitty. They were from that town, and they had had friends in that town. And so earlier in the day, her husband had decided to go and see some friends of his before the big event, which is understandable. So I was like, I get it. If if it were me, I'd want to see my friends too. And this whole video is just my cat bullying me. Oh my god. I understood. But because he had left with their car, and she didn't even realize that that had happened, that meant that they couldn't go to the park and take photos. And so in my head, I was freaking out a little. I was like, great, that's a fucking failure, but that's alright. She was just like, well, shit, what do we do? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. We can just take some photos here. So the hotel wasn't overly fancy or overly nice, but it was nice enough to get some good photos. And her daughters were two of the people in my court, in my quince court. And so I was like, while I don't have everyone in my court here, I have two of them. So I can take, like, a few photos with them, and I can try and get photos on my own at the hotel, That's how that can work out. And so the hotel had a really shitty, like, broken down fountain that didn't work anymore, like this, like, this, like, shitty fountain. And I was like, that's fine. We can go ahead and, like, take photos here anyway, and if we get them from a certain angle, no one will know. And so that's what we did. And we took some photos inside the hotel lobby. That wasn't all that fancy, but hey, it had a fireplace, so that worked out fine. And that's what we did. We just tried to make it work, and we winged it. And then, like, a few hours later, when her husband finally came back, at that point, I was like, okay, we gotta get going to the venue because we're cutting it close. Because the idea was that she'd take me to the park, get some photos done, and then we'd go straight to the venue. I was freaking out a little because we were running out of time. Like, in my head, I was like, oh, when are we gonna get there? Because we're running out of time here. And the other thing was, my quince was unique in the sense that I I promised my mom that if she paid in full for like the venue and for a lot of things that I would sing. Um, I was in a band for a long time. I've been in musicals and I love to sing. I'm a singer and she knows this. And she was like, "Okay, you have to sing at the event and I get at least 2 songs." And I was like, "Okay, I'll sing 2 songs." And the problem was, though, is that I was really eager to get to the venue so that I could rehearse, right? Because I was going to do this and I was going to perform at my own quince in front of my friends, in front of like all my family. It was kind of daunting. I don't know, I didn't like that part of it, but I was like, I want to get there so that I have time to at least go through the songs a few times. That didn't happen. When we had gotten there with just barely enough time for me to sing through both the songs once. I had a song in Spanish and a song in English that I was singing, and both of them was perfect. I am not a perfect Spanish speaker. I'm good with Spanglish. I do have some, like, ability to speak Spanish. I can speak Spanish a little, but I'm not 100% wonderfully fluent, right? And I definitely probably have more of an American accent because, well, I'm second generation, And while everyone growing up around me spoke Spanish, as time went on, I just started to kind of lose it a little bit more and more. And I definitely still speak Spanish well enough, to get by, but it's definitely not perfect Spanish. And so I really wanted to just get the song that I was singing in Spanish perfect because I knew that there'd be actual Mexicans at this event, like people from Mexico, people who were actually Mexicans. Well, I'm a Mexican American and there's like 2 generations separating me from Mexico, so I feel very Mexican in that sense. I'm not the perfect representation of a Mexican by any means. I feel very Mexican American. While I don't really feel like 100% like an American white girl, I also definitely don't feel 100% like a girl from Mexico, Mexican American, very much so in between. And because of that, I was really worried that people would say things like, "Oh, she has such an American accent," or "She sounds so American," which were bound to happen, but I just wanted to do everything in my power to make it feel as authentic as possible. Not only for me, but really just for the people there, the judgmental family members. And so that's what I was trying to do. And while I was nervous about it, it sounded perfectly fine when I had rehearsed it. When I had rehearsed the song, it sounded perfectly okay, and there was no problem whatsoever. So yeah, that's how that was going. And then people started to show up. It was time for the event to start. We had gotten the tables and centerpiece already. There was an open bar. The caterers were there. Everything was just falling into place. Cake was there. Everything was good. People were starting to show up more and more. And the girls that were in my court started to show up. My court was filled with pretty much only my primas, only them. Like, my primas were my court, pretty much. Except for one person. One person in my court was a childhood best friend of mine. Although she was a white girl, and I still love her, I still talk to her, we're still really close. But she was like the only person in my court who wasn't related to me. It's kind of funny when you see photos of it, because it's just like my Latinx like cousins, and then you just see like this one white girl sticking out like a sore thumb who's like blonde with blue eyes. It's cute. It's really cute. But anyway, so my court starts to get there, and that's important because there's a dance that we're doing. There's the court dance. It's really exciting. It's really important. And then I notice that my friend who's in my court is not there yet. She hasn't shown up. She's late. And then I'm thinking, oh shit, I should have prepared for this, because oftentimes she is a little fashionably late. Although she was getting really late here. Like, she was late. She was late. And I was like hella fucking worried about that shit. I was like, oh my god, this bitch is not on time. And while she's late most of the time, I didn't think she'd be late this time because I figured she understood the importance of the event. So I was like, nah, she'll be on time. There's no fucking way. She'll be on time. Nah, this girl fell asleep and she was not showing up for no one. And her mom eventually just had to tell her. It was so funny. Her mom was like, I told her, I was like, you made a commitment. Get up, girl. Like, she eventually woke up and she made her way. She made her ass over there. But she was hella late. And so I kept pushing back the court dance and trying to just kind of rearrange things. Because there was an order of things that would happen. And there was an order of when they would happen. You know, there would be this first, that second, and then yada yada yada. But I just wasn't about that because I was like, this girl's late, so I just kept pushing back the court dance. Eventually, when she finally arrived, she had missed a whole lot. When she finally arrived, I was like, yes, this bitch is here, we can do the court dance now. And so the court dance was gonna be fine. When we did the dance, though, there was not a whole lot of preparation because I had kind of had general ideas of what we were going to do, and it was simple and easy, and all of my Latinx cousins, like my Latinas, they knew what to do, right? And everything was fine, and so they were just doing everything in sync, and it was going perfectly fine. But then, like, throughout the dance, my one friend, she kept stepping on her dress and others' dresses and my dresses, and she kept tripping and falling a lot throughout the dance, and just overall struggling to dance. And you know what? That's okay. It was kind of cute. All of my cousins were like, what the fuck? But it's okay. It was cute. Like, I love her. Looking back on it, she's so adorable. I love her. She's cute. I'm not even upset about it. At the time, I was just like, oh shit, like... Okay, hi. Before she had gotten there, because she showed up late, me and my cousins had kind of discussed, like, what we were gonna do, generally speaking. Because we didn't have a choreographed dance, which oftentimes you do have a choreographed dance. But I was like, you know, the song that we are choosing isn't going to be hard to dance to, and we don't have the money nor the time to pull that together. And so what we wound up doing is we were just like, here's the general idea of what this dance is going to be, and then that's perfectly fine. But the thing is that it was so simple that you didn't need to have been in our conversation to have understood what was going on, because it was such general, simple moves. You know, you really just had to look and watch someone else who was also doing it to understand what was happening. But like I said, my girl did not have the moves. I love her though. She's so cute. She's my little vanilla princess. But my girl did not have the moves. So while the court dance was a little messy, it overall worked out and it looked fine. It wasn't all that bad. People didn't give me shit about it or anything, so it worked out just fine. Me singing, though, when it was time for me to actually sing, that was a something. The first song went fine. Then the second song in Spanish, I got so much nervousness from being so heavily judged in the past about my Spanish that I was like so petrified that I like mumbled through some of the song. Like I mumbled some of it, and I just like, everyone was like looking at me like, what the fuck? Most of it went fine, but there was parts of it that were clearly not well, you know, parts of it were clearly having issues. But overall it went okay. And it was so frustrating because I was like, I just sang this song like an hour before everybody got here, and I killed this shit. But as soon as I'm in front of you all, I was scared because I was like, you all are gonna judge me. And that's just the way it is. So yeah. But anyway, that's how that went. And yeah, it went okay. Basically, at that point, I was just like, whatever. I'm just here to have fun and chill with my friends. I had a lot of friends though, like a lot of my Mexican friends came, but then a lot of like white people showed up, right? And look, there's nothing wrong with that, but there were some white people who said some kind of off-color things that were just kind of awkward to deal with. And a lot of people had told me, this is my first quinceanera. I've never been to one of these. I've never done this before. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, yeah, bitch, it shows. um, but no, I was nice about it and it was okay. I just, it was kind of weird because whenever I was singing my song in Spanish, all of these like white girls that I was friends with just kept giving me like these dirty, nasty looks of like, what is she doing? This is weird, And listen, if you're gonna go to an event that is something within culture that you don't understand, could you at least do like a little bit of research first? Like, don't be so hella shocked by everything. Like, and it's just kind of insulting whenever you feel like your own friends are kind of acting weird about something that is so important to you. It's kind of sad. So, listen, before you go to any event that is very cultural and it is a culture that you do not belong to, if you're invited, feel lucky, and kind of do some basic research before you go. Don't just like run in there being like, it's whatever. But anyway, I think overall it was a success. The DJ had some moments where he didn't know what was going on. He had me create a playlist for him to play, and then he did not play any of the songs on the playlist, and I was like, what the fuck? But it was fine. I wound up just requesting like a million songs and basically practically begging him to play certain things. And then when he would play a song that I requested, I kind of just figured, okay, every song I'm just going to request, like every time a song ends, I'm just going to request another one and another one and another one. That way he doesn't like play this weird EDM music that he was playing. It was weird. Like you have all these like Malibu Barbie white girls and like all of these like super Mexican people in a room together, and he decided that the perfect soundtrack for a quinceañera would be EDM music. And we all were like looking at each other like, what the fuck is playing right now? Like no one was dancing for the longest time because we all were confused as hell. And so once I started requesting music though, then it was fine and people finally started to dance. And that worked out. I overall had a really fun time and I danced with a lot of my friends and it was a fun event. It was. Do I wish that some things had gone more smoothly? Sure, but that's the fun of the story. Now I have a story to tell about it. And you're probably wondering about the ceremony, like, of, the religious part of a quince. If you're someone who understands a quince or you've had a quince, you probably know that it's a very Catholic thing. And there's like this whole ceremony before the party at a church that I just kind of skipped over. And that's because I'm an atheist. And I was even back then. No one in my family is, but I kind of always have been. And so I decided that I didn't want to have the church ceremony. The kind of general idea behind the church ceremony is that you give yourself to God. That's the idea. The whole kind of general idea of a quince is that you're giving yourself to God and you kind of have a newfound dedication for God. And I didn't believe in God, and I still don't, so I definitely wasn't going to do that. And I kind of just skipped that part and did all of the other quince traditions, right? And that I kind of just skipped over. And a lot of people did feel like that was kind of weird, that I just skipped over it, but look, while you can argue day and night that a quince is only a Catholic thing, yes, it is a Catholic thing, I won't deny that, I still felt like it was something that I had a right to because I'm a Mexican American. It's a Mexican thing. It's a Latinx thing. Like, Latinx people, they participate in that. They participate in quinces. And so, while it is a Catholic thing, it is also just a Hispanic thing. It's a Latinx thing. And I I felt like just because I wasn't religious doesn't mean that I should get to miss out on something that I'd looked forward to for so long. I didn't feel like it was right for me to miss out on something that was a part of my heritage and a part of my culture just because I didn't believe in God, you know? And while a lot of people may disagree with me on that, you can go ahead and feel free to disagree. That's what I felt was fair. That's what I felt was right, you know? Just because I don't believe in a higher power like that doesn't necessarily mean that I shouldn't get to experience my own culture, you know? And it was really special to me, it was. It was a special day, and it was special to all of my family. And so, that's all that should matter. As far as my court goes, though, part of the reason why my court was kind of feeling weird and empty without my one friend was not only because we couldn't do the dance without her, but also just because my court, for their dresses, it was all the same style of dress. Like, they all had the same kind of dress, but in a different color. Each of them had a different color of the rainbow, you know? And the reason why is because when I didn't have a chambelan, I'm bisexual, so I was like, Mom, what if I just had a female chambelan? And I'm sure there's people who have done that. But she was like, no, no way in hell. Homophobia said no. She was just like, no way. And so I was like, fine, I'll find a way to sneak something gay into this event. And so I made all of my girls have a different colored dress. All of my girls in my court had a different colored dress. And so whenever my one friend, who was the color blue, kind of a pivotal color in the rainbow, didn't show up, it kind of looked weird. So, when she finally did show up, though, we completed the rainbow. Overall, thank you to everyone who participated in my quince, or who helped out in some way, or who paid for something. And thank you for all the people who made it happen, because it was a really amazing time. It was a special event, for sure. And most definitely, it was every little Mexican girl's dream. And that's all I have to say. This video is going to be hella long, so be prepared to sit here for a century. Okay. Goodbye!